Okay, so I am going to continue. I'm sorry about that. The alarm went off and kicked me out. So here I am. So this is now the point where I have the flood. So I notice that there's water, and I take some linens in my upper room and I step on all these different linens safely with pillows, etc., until I finally get into the corner where I have the electrical power box to the house, so that I could turn all those things off, so that as I walked in the water I could figure out what the heck happened. And so during this process of scooping out water and doing all these scooping out water, doing all these things to safely establish what's going on, the sump pump and the sewer, whatever, had failed, and the electricity had gone out. And so then there's all these variables that had happened, and then that's what caused the flood. So the bottom line is, I'm thinking that I'm getting ready to leave to go to school, and all of my items that I had spent days and weeks preparing and packing, all the things were on the floor, because I don't know, that's what we do. We get things ready and we put them on the floor. So my clothes were destroyed, my laptop was destroyed, everything 18 inches up from the wall was destroyed, and all those things were destroyed from that flood. So here I am getting ready to start school. I don't have a laptop. My data's destroyed. The clothes that I packed for this trip are destroyed. Whatever laundry I had out that was like for the next batch of things that I was gonna have ready and put away, they were destroyed. My towels and linens, my comforters, they were destroyed. So I just, thank God for my carpenter friend who was helping me with my van build, so that he was able to help me, get and remove all that stuff out of the apartment. My best friend and her son came, and, my mom came, and so it's like all of these things, all of the moldy, ruined things were removed from the apartment. The walls were cut out, the 18 inches. And that meant that at that moment, like, my entire life was like uprooted. And furniture that I had, was destroyed. Things that were able to be, renovated and kept, we kept. But I mean, at this point, like, everything had to come out. Everything that was wet had to dry. And things that were just beyond ruined were hauled out of the house, put on the driveway in a dump pile. And, there were several dump loads that were taken of all the things that were ruined. So needless to say, I was stressed out. I had just experienced a flood in my van due to water damage, and, fixing that problem from the winter in, the summer, so that I could have everything functioning properly, so that I'm prepared to go away to school. And that problem is finally fixed, and now flood number 2. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, this is so, like, what is going on? And so whatever was salvageable was wiped down, whatever, and then carried into my upper room, so that, again, functional, open space room that I could do my fitness coaching clients in, that I could do my coaching sessions in, was now completely filled up, like a storage locker again, with cabinets from my kitchen, and my refrigerator, and whatever, just everything that was salvageable was stored up in the upper room, which you really couldn't walk. It was like a little tiny maze that you could, like, eke by, and climb over things. So then the very bottom of the basement apartment where I am right now, all of this had to be cleared out, and all the walls had to be cut down and fans were running for several days. I think a week's time, fans were running to clear out the mold. You know, professionals were brought in, you know, so the whole point is, like, it was a big ordeal. But during this whole process, like, I really couldn't go away to school. So I changed my deadline for my master's program to be an online program instead of an in-person program. So that changed everything. And I was living in my van as much as I could. But again, this was in the middle of the heat of like August, which is super hot here in Maryland and Virginia. So it was like I just couldn't handle it. So I ended up getting a hotel from, you know, my insurance, my renter's insurance. And so now I'm living in a hotel while I'm going to school for my master's. And my dad and I would get together on the weekends, and we would go to a park or, you know, play a game of Scrabble or chess. And I loved, you know, and cherished those moments of spending time with my dad. And he tells me that something doesn't seem right, and he's like not breathing properly, etc. Now, he was a smoker, but nonetheless, we find out, we take him to the hospital, and we find out he has multiple types of cancer, and that it's very progressive, and we're told that he has only a couple of months to live. So here I am. I experienced a flood in my van. I renovated that. I experienced a flood in my apartment. I'm displaced. I'm living in a hotel. I find out that my dad is going to die, and he has 3 to 6 months to live. I'm in a master's program, which I've already committed to. And I have papers to write, and I'm living in a hotel. And when I'm not writing papers, I'm spending time with my dad in the hospital. And then it gets to the point where, you know, he is ready to be moved to hospice. And I'm spending as much time, I'm trying to get all the stories in that I can remember. We're sharing memories. I'm making sure that I'm going to fulfill the things that he had left to do, that he put me in charge of, you know, with his writings, and different tasks, you know, our family history, things that he wanted me to do for Baltimore. And, you know, it's heavy. It's like the anticipation of knowing that the person that has shaped you the most, you know, is exiting. And it was a really rough time. But, you know, it was inevitable that death was coming. So my dad died in what was it? September of 24. And the time for grief, and then all of the things that I had inherited, that my dad had asked me to get from his place. And I forgot, there's one more part of the story. So my dad, while he was in the hospital, asked me to go to his home, which was a trailer, and he asked me to get certain things and bring them to him. And of course, in order to get some of these things, I had to go through other things because he was not as organized as I had hoped. And when I went to his trailer to find some of these things, I discovered his trailer had flooded. Yes, I can't even believe. You're probably like, what? Yeah. So, flood in my van, flooded my apartment, flooded my dad's mobile home. So while my dad's still alive, I'm dealing with his mobile home flood and trying to rescue what I can from what happened to his home. So I'm trying to sort and organize things. I'm saving the photos. I'm, looking through his papers, trying to find things that are important. Whatever things were up top, I tried to go through those things and make sure that I was gathering things that were important that I needed access to, and things to protect his identity that needed to be shredded. And then I'm going through all of the momentums and the things, the books, but because so many things were lower, on the floor or stacked on lower shelves, so many of those things were ruined. And, some of the vintage items, I tried to rescue them. I'd lay them out in the sun to dry, and some of them were salvageable, but a lot of them were not. And through this process of, again, packing up stuff, putting it in a box, then bringing that stuff back to my house, and then piling that up, and then going back for another box. You can imagine going to school for your master's, going to your dad's place that had been filled with a flood, visiting your dad in the hospital who's dying, trying to keep my head on straight, and at the same time realizing that, one life is ending and another life is still ongoing. And he's kind of passing the baton to me with his writing, and he's saying, I want you to do this. And he's passing the baton to me with these projects that he had hoped to do in his lifetime that he wasn't getting to. And, and it's like, you're remembering all the good, you're trying to preserve on camera some happy memories or moments, and it's like, it just, the time was running out. And the next thing I know, I went to the trailer, and there was a big padlock on the door. And whatever bills were supposed to be paid or weren't paid due to the estate, due to my brother managing whatever, the trailer was locked up. And so the last round of all of those things that I went back to collect things, all those photos are still in the trailer on one of his counters that I never got to take. And some of those photos were some of the things that I wanted the most. But I was trying to get the heavy stuff out first, And I lost all of those photos that were part of my family's history. And there was chaos with my dad's death involving my brother. There was chaos with things that my dad said that were going to be mine to inherit were given to other people, even though what he wrote to me in text messages and on a will was not honored. So there was all of this complicated grief around my dad's death, and I guess you could call it whatever sibling rivalry had been present. Not because I wanted it to be that way, but you can't change people, but you can change people. Meaning I'm not going to be able to change my brother and what he does and what his wife does. But I am able to change myself and what people I want to be around in my life, because I don't want to be around people that are not kind and do things to create conflict, on purpose. So anyway, what I'm getting at is I dealt with the piles of stuff from my dad, his flood, the grief of his death. And after I finished that semester, I guess it was December, I did not want to go back to school. I needed time to grieve and to deal with all the other piles of stuff that came into my life from my dad's death. And, you know, it's like this whole idea of when we're committed to certain things, it forces us to stay the course, you know, to like, you know, be that warrior and, you know, carry your sword and be like, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. But when that pressure from going to school for my master's, from that one semester, when that pressure was removed and I was not writing papers every single day and doing research every single day, and I finally, after 5 months of living in various hotels, because guess what? Living in the hotels I lived in, yes, one of the hotels that I was living in flooded. So let's get this. Van flood, my apartment flood, my dad's trailer flood, hotel flood. 4 floods. And being displaced over and over again, and then moving from this hotel room to another hotel room, and then the air conditioner broke, and then moved to this hotel room to that hotel room, and then my hotel room was broken into, and you know, all of my medications were stolen, all of my herbal supplements, just, you know, people. Greedy people. My van was vandalized on the parking lot with a hit and run. So what I'm getting at is you add all these things up together, and 2024 was truly one of the most difficult years in my life. I survived it. It was not easy. And when my apartment was finally put back together after all the renovation, after all of the, you know, redoing of the walls, redoing of the floor, you know, it was then an empty apartment that I came back to. I think it was like December 15th or something like that. So right before the holidays, I came back to this empty apartment, and that upper floor still had all of my stuff, like just random stuff after all the cabinets and of the kitchen were put back in place, and you know, all of the heavy furniture that was salvageable was put back in place, and some of the furniture, like the lower part of the furniture, had to literally be modified, you know, so that new wood was on the bottom after the damage. You get what I'm saying? So things were modified. So after the apartment was put back together and I walked back into my home, and it was like I had like a chair to sit in, and you know, a desk. I had no bed. I had no sofa. And after all the time of living in and out of my van and living in hotels, like, I just really wanted to just be at home, you know, in an apartment with heat and air conditioning, and not having to pass people who are smoking, you know, weed and cigarettes every time I walked in and out of a public building. I wanted to be able to not be, you know, stalked when I parked my car at various places on parking lots at all these different hotels. I wanted to just not have my van in a place where somebody could, you know, run into it and hit and run. Like, I just wanted peace, I just wanted peace. And so I bought this sofa, and I bought a couple items, minimalist, to set up the apartment. And then as I started to go through the boxes, to go through the stuff, I needed other things and structures and additional tables to help set up, to sort through all these things and make it a system of 1, 2, 3. I'm going to keep this, I'm going to sell this, I'm going to donate this. And again, while I was grieving the death of my dad, which was, I think, the hardest of all of the deaths so far, I really needed time to rest. And so 2025 was a year of a slower pace for me. It was a year of rest. It was a year of taking care of my body. It was a year of having lots of massage and, going through these boxes one at a time and making decisions on these things. And again, uploading things to Facebook Marketplace and getting rid of other stuff. So when I say that this has been a process of me surviving extreme disruption, and that I did what I could do to protect decades of my work, of my content, of my proprietary things that I've created during my lifetime. And it has been hours and hours of sorting and going through things and resorting and reboxing, to get to the level that I'm at right now. Like that room that you saw with all those boxes, that's after the fact of what I've already done to get to this point. And so my motto has been no matter what. And during this process, I had a space planning problem. That was my problem. I had the space, but I didn't manage it or label it or catalog it the best way that I could. I mean, but I wasn't like grouping all of these items now in this one area. It was just like, I'd get this stuff done and just like pile it wherever it was just to get onto the next box. So if you ask me, what have I done for the past couple years? My aunt died in 2016. My fiance died in 2021. And my dad died in 2024. So from 2016 until now, 2026, that's 10 years. I have been sorting through the clutter and the inheritance of 3 people, of their stuff, intermingled with my stuff, trying to run my business while dealing with trying to sell things online at Facebook Marketplace and Etsy and wherever else. And I created a survival system. All of the curtains, the wardrobes, the boxes, the bins, the labels, all of those things were like me trying to put a protective covering around the things that I wanted to protect and save. And when I put the curtains up in the room, when that room was like, all the boxes are like all the way the frame around that room, and I would sit in there and put the curtains in front of the boxes to be like, I can sit in this room and have a little bit of peace. I can invite people over and have a dinner for Shabbat. But those things were a temporary fix to deal with the trauma. And the trauma is really what I've dealt with one-on-one in therapy and life coaching, online and in person over these 10 years. I've done a tremendous amount of work, unpacking, discovering, understanding what drug addiction is. I understood alcohol addiction, but drug addiction is a whole different animal. And understanding narcissism and what it is and how it affects people, how it affects your brain, how it affects your cortisol, your stress level. And during this whole process, and it's been 10 years, I've also been through the season of menopause, and I'm still in it. So during that whole period of acquiring all of this stuff and dealing with these multiple floods and dealing with the trauma and the abuse from narcissistic abuse, you can imagine my cortisol has been pretty high while dealing with menopause, and I gained a bunch of weight. So during this whole time, my weight was fluctuating. And there were times when I would emotionally eat to deal with the grief. And then, my body would not lose the weight as quickly as it did in my younger years. So then it would take me much longer to then get rid of that weight. So what I'm getting at is, it has been a process, okay? A journey. And I'm still in it. I'm still reclaiming what was lost or temporarily put on hold. And now I'm going to talk to you about my vision for what I want to create with these spaces and how I'm going to go about doing that. So I am going to now stop the video here, and I will identify the next video where you can pick it up to find out more about what the vision is. And again, as you listen to me share these ideas, think about your own life and how that can apply to you. Again, I am Hyland with VALOR.Online and the VALOR Institute, and I am here ready, excited to catapult myself and to you into the next season, to help you level up and help myself level up into what is next. I'll see you soon in the next video.